Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Jenn Baljko, founder of Always on My Way and creator of the Fierce Awakened Woman Global Conference. This is a virtual gathering of the brave and gentle-hearted who are following impulses for freedom, returning to the global village to share our unique gifts, and inventing new ways forward for ourselves and for our communities. We are celebrating our dynamic grace and activating our grounded courage so we can all be fierce and fun and fantastic. Allow yourself to drop into the session with an open heart and an open mind. Feel into your own sense of awareness and tap into your inner strength and wisdom. And get ready to leap into the enlightened, embodied, and expressive self as we connect and learn from others who have already sparked their joy journey. As you settle in and begin to tune into what's present today, please join me in welcoming Daniel Barber. Hi, Daniel.
Hey, so great to be here.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for saying yes. Let me tell you a little bit about Daniel as we jump into this really great session today. Across Daniel's long and winding career, from social work to quantitative research, design and statistics, video production, political activism, and music, Daniel has worked with many smart, large-hearted, and wise people as they've applied themselves to our collective challenges. One of his enduring questions has always been, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? He has come to think, though, that this how question is ultimately unproductive. He proposes a better question is, what do I do now? That question tends to wake us up and point us in the direction of the world we want to see and the way we want to be in this world. It gets us out of our heads and plants us in the present, where creation begins. And of course, sound making is profoundly creative, connective, generative, and catalyzing. When we align mindful awareness with the use of sound, it matters in ways that are impossible to measure. Daniel, whose spirit name is Two Trees, is in the business of living musically, and he works primarily with people who yearn for that too. Since 2015, he has been working with individuals and groups using a 6-phase process he designed called Tap the Flow. Tap the Flow integrates a mindful presence practice with a unique musical improvisation modality that helps people engage with their authenticity, realize and liberate their unique offerings, and claim their naturally powerful place in the world. Today, Daniel's going to show us how to use music as a guide as we want to wake up our fierceness and discover and rediscover the unique gifts that want to come forth now. Hey, Daniel, and welcome.
Thank you so much.
How are
So
you
good to be
doing?
here, Jen. I'm doing really well, and I think I can predict this. At this point, when we're doing this interview, this day is half over, but I can already tell that this is going to be the highlight of my day. So let's make it that way.
Let's make it that way, and let's make it the highlight of other people's day as we jump
Absolutely,
in
yes. May that be.
here. Give me a little bit of a sense of where your life has taken you, because you've gone from social and statistical research all the way to video production, and then I know you've been involved with bands and music and drumming and really discovering the sound. What's your journey been on this road?
You know, what a wonderful first question. You know, it's like, well, so what's the real essence of that answer? And really, in a way, I think that I have just always been kind of drawn to being open to what really is, like being open to what is really true for me. And I've had a lot of experience, as we all have, in wrestling through the conflicts and the challenges of the family that I grew up in, and the blessings, deep blessings, and some really profound challenges that I've continued to wrestle with throughout most of my life. And so the question of whether or not I went into social work because I wanted to make a difference in the world, or because I was trying to heal myself, it's like, what are the, those kinds of things. But my experience of it all has been that I've always just wanted to follow my heart. I've always wanted to do the thing that felt true for me. And where that has led has been this fascinating journey, this very, very much of a winding path. And I've done a whole lot of different kinds of things in my career and in my sort of extracurricular world. It's easy for me to say, right? And so it's just been a fascinating existence, and I've just learned a lot of things in a lot of different ways. And right now, I'm just super grateful that I have a way of offering my perspective in a way that feels coherent. Like all those different parts of my life that I've been through have something to offer to what I'm offering now in a way that's reasonably coherent, I think, and might be useful to other people.
Well, and tell us what that is, because I've heard you speak about this, and I know it has a lot to do with sound making, which is different than music making, right? And even at the most basic level, and how to, I've heard you speak about finding a soul song and using different techniques, including tap into flow, in your 6 phase process. What is that? How are you bringing this to the world?
Well, I have I in the musical part, in the last 20 years or so, when I sort of came back to music, I have always, since I was a little kid, wanted to learn how to improvise. I learned piano as a young kid. I started in piano lessons at 4 and took for like 7 years and got pretty good at it. And I took another couple of years in high school, and it was always notes on the page and just trying to replicate somebody else's music really, really, really well. And I was pretty good at it. I was a good reader, and my fingers were decent, and I could memorize, and I could knock stuff out. I could execute music well. But my brother was a jazz fan. He's 10 years older than me, and I listened to jazz since I was a little kid, and I always admired that ability to be able to just sort of step out and just do stuff. And but I was never trained as a kid. I kept trying to be trained, and the thought process was you have to master, being able to execute stuff before you can actually, qualify to take Improv 101. And so I was in my 40s, literally, before I ever got any real training. I tried to teach myself along the way and kept running into my own walls, because it's really hard to teach yourself stuff that's so broadly challenging. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, long story short, I finally came up in the process of learning finally how to improvise and performing and playing with other people. In my 40s, I came up with this what I call the holy trinity of improv, which is basically to listen carefully. Number one is listen carefully, and it's interesting how many different fields of experts in different fields excuse me, talk about the importance of listening. That in any kind of, in business or in relationships or even in sports, and you have to pay attention to what's going on out there. You have to really be aware of what's going on out there. And so listening really carefully and listening really, really deeply is step one. And then the second thing is to feel, is to pay attention to how you feel. What is happening inside of you right now? Who are you right now? Mm-hmm. And then the third thing is, what do I do now? And that's really when the more I think about this, the more I have sort of come to realize that those may be the most foundational questions that we ever have to deal with as living beings. what's happening now? What's going on? Who am I now? What's my awareness of who I am right now? What do I know? What do I remember? How am I feeling? How am I doing? And then, okay, now what do I do? Do I go into the kitchen and get lunch? Do I have this conversation? What do I say next? What do I do now? Do I plan on going to graduate school? Regardless of what the time frame is, it always boils down to a decision and an action in the present moment. And all the spiritual teachings, all of that appears to be about what's happening now. That anything in the past and the future is, just energy that's running around in your head, fantasies and ideas and stuff that's happening now. And that's all it really is now. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but
no, I think it does, because I think, especially with 2020, this sense of being here now for many of us is probably one of the biggest wake up calls we've ever had, right? There's just all the different ways we've had to learn how to be present. And now in 2021, as we're still trying to figure out what's coming up for us next and remembering what we've just lived through, it is this, okay, well, here I am now doing the best I can do, or putting my best effort into it,
mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
seeing how it unfolds. And I love that you tie this mindfulness and the sense of awareness of this, of being present to the listening and the deep listening, because I think when we're just starting on our journey, the deep listening can be really scary, right? You might not want to hear what is coming up.
Yeah.
And to take
Yeah.
that next step. Right?
I think you're right. I think you're right. And that may be why it is so prominent these days that people are talking about the importance of listening, because we tend not to. We tend to, and I don't know, I'll just speak for myself. When I think back on my experience of this whole question, it's like I used to think, well, I heard what you said, I heard the words, I heard it, I heard you. What are you talking about? I'm listening. I'm paying, I'm listening. What do you mean? And so to go from there to, just like step 2 on that could be, well, you said what you just said, but maybe you actually meant something that is a little deeper than what you said. And maybe what you really meant is kind of, maybe you don't even have the words for it yet, or maybe I don't even have the words for what I'm wanting to say. And so in order for us to really listen to each other, and it's easy enough to look at the news, it's easy enough to look at Reddit or Facebook, right? Or have conversations around the family Thanksgiving dinner table. to realize the challenge of really being able to listen to someone and who they really are and what it is that they really want to convey, whether or not they are actually executing that task effectively or not. It's not really my responsibility to require that you are a perfect communicator. My responsibility is to listen so deeply that I can hear you regardless of what you're actually saying.
So this, to me, sounds a little bit like a vibrational level, that we're even removing maybe the speech element of communicating, and really dropping into more of a heart-centered place of communicating effectively in a different soul-based way, in a heart-based way.
Mm-hmm. Really communicating, really communicating, and knowing, and in so many different fascinating ways. The only thing I can really do ultimately is to control what comes out of my mouth, what movements I make. That's the only real power that I have. And so it becomes a fascinating process to realize that I have no control over anything other than what I say and what I do. And that's it. And so if I want to see a world where there is a different relationship to the environment, or if I want to see a world where there's more peace and harmony and understanding, or if I want to see a world where people are listening to each other across disagreements, then the only power I have to make any difference in that at all is to begin doing that in my own life, and to start to do that. And that becomes that question of what do I do now, regardless of what's going to happen. Are we going to be through this COVID thing, and when are we going to get back together, and all that stuff. That's just mental stuff. That really is literally, in my opinion, a waste of time. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a waste of life energy, because we're trying to predict things that are ultimately unpredictable. Mm-hmm. And we know from the last 100 years or so that that life really isn't a bunch of billiard balls back bouncing around in predictable ways. It's matter and energy that's trading places probabilistically. So at the most fundamental levels we've been able to come up with scientifically, reality is fundamentally weird and unpredictable. So
in the most beautiful ways also, and magical ways, of course.
Yeah.
Or difficult ways could be the opposite of that too.
Yeah. And so much of the difficulty that I know that I've had in my life is when I resist reality, when I resist this woman that really just wants to break up with me. It's like I want to resist that, and I want to make it different. I want to make that reality different because I don't feel comfortable with it. My camera even turns off. It's so uncomfortable. It'll come back here in a sec.
There you are. Okay.
But
that's because we're talking at a high vibration that even Zoom can't even
That's right.
Can't
even handle it. Yeah, no, we're so way far beyond.
Well, and then so how does this fit into the creativity side, right? Once we get into the deep listening and feeling where we are right now, and asking the question, okay, what's next? What's the next step? What's the next action? Where does creativity play into this? And how is sound opening us up to that creativity flow and process, and reconnecting with who we are, really?
Yeah, great question. That begins, it really sort of leans into that question, okay, what do I do now? And so in each moment, I have an opportunity to decide what I'm going to say. I get to decide how I'm going to respond to this question. How am I going to incorporate sound? And one of the things that I'll say about that, sort of from a kind of a discussion standpoint, is that sound has been thought of by many as the creative principle. Sound, it may be the only primordial force that is actually capable of creating things out of thin air. And there is science now. There are ways of looking at the impact that sound has on the material world. It organizes matter. You may have seen these Chladni plates where you put sand or some kind of thing on a plate and plug sound to it, and it makes these mandala patterns and stuff. Mm-hmm. So sound literally organizes matter. And so if I take what I know about my socio-political philosophy and my philosophy about how change happens, and incorporate stuff like maybe it's just conversations like this, and soul to soul, and gradual things that ripple out, love rippling out, then the things that I can do can be ways of expressing that idea. And as I play, I can be listening for, is this really true, or am I just kind of making something that sounds beautiful so that everybody out there will go, oh. It's like, is this really true, or this is just BS, right? And so you're always having this back and forth between what you're doing and then what you hear, because as soon as you play something, then that's what's happening. That becomes part of the input now. And so I can check and go, does that really resonate with who I am now? Is that really true? And then you have the next moment to say, okay, well then in that case, maybe I really want to do something that's more like that. And then you check that, and it's like, Well, that's maybe a little closer. Maybe it's actually a little more rumbly. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Right? And so it
It feels
becomes,
like the rumbling of women coming forward.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some potency right there. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, but okay, for those of us who are not maybe musically inclined or don't have a way to know that we're musically inclined, or maybe we've been laughed at trying to be musically inclined. What what is our entry point into this? And I've heard, I want to go back and I want to talk to you a little bit about original sound, because I've heard you speak about original sound and how we don't need to be Mozart or Beethoven, right out of the gate. Or, that's not maybe our footprint or our impression, but there are sounds and ways we can connect to it, just like you mentioned, primordially
Mm-hmm.
in our
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. I've gotten to where in this work, I used to talk about music improvisation, and now I talk about sound improvisation. And it's really not because I'm wanting to um, step away from what a lot of people would call music, or to do anything different, really. But really more to just get down to the essence of things, because music is really just sound, and it's sound that is organized, and that it expresses some of our complexity, and we are complex, and there are parts of us that are pretty coherent, and there are parts of us that are pretty messy. And at this point in history, we've learned, and in the whole human story, that we've learned that a lot of things that a lot of people would call music, sounds like this, right? And it's just it's a rumbling, it's a bunch of, you've heard stuff like that in movies, and you've heard stuff like that in your soul. And so really it's the original, who knows what the original thing is, what comes from you right now. And it might be something that sounds like Bach, or that kind of thing. But I find that it's really actually easier for all of us. We're all capable of doing this. We all speak, and when we speak, we sing. Nobody speaks like this. Nobody speaks in monotone. We all sing when we speak, but we just don't give ourselves an acknowledgement of that.
Mm-hmm.
And people that say, well, I don't have a musical bone in my body, and it's like, well, I try to avoid any kind of argument, because up here that's not where we connect. But where we can really realize who we really are is to just feel that heartbeat, and to really feel the rhythm that we express when we walk, and the way that we speed up tempos when we get excited, and the way we slow down tempos when we relax. It's these are innate. These are things that are built into us. It's built into life. And so this whole idea about how do I step in is to simply pay attention to how you are, and find ways to do something that expresses your truth. And if you do that with sound, with some kind of a sound making instrument, there's creative energy in that. There's creative juju in that.
And is it with an instrument, or is it as simple as playing with your voice? Like you said, when we speak, we sing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It can absolutely be as simple and as profound as playing with your voice. There is no other instrument, I think, that comes closer to being able to express the essence of who we really are than our voice. Mm-hmm. And so, absolutely. And one of the things that I bring to the table, there are a lot of people who are really beautiful, wonderful, soulful, heartful voice coaches that really can help us all to connect more with our voice and the essence of what it is that we have to share and to say in the world. And the gift that I happen to bring is a way to connect with the piano so that you can do the same kind of thing with the piano that you could do with your voice. So I have
Give
this.
us an example of that. Can you do it
Well,
now?
if you had never seen a piano before,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just imagine that you had never seen a piano before, and you might just sit down and start doing this and just playing with it. And for those of you who think that you don't know how to play the piano, I can tell you here in the next 3 seconds. There's these buttons here, and you push them down. That's how you play the piano. If you asked me how to play a bassoon, I would have no idea how to help you with that. I could not tell. There's no way. But the piano, I can tell you. You push these notes down. The question is, which notes do you push down? Right. That's the rub.
Question.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that really is the question: what to play, what to do now. It's not how do I play the piano. It's what to play. And there is a kind of a big hurdle with the piano in that, which piano students and teachers have struggled with for centuries, generations, which is how do you figure out the different 12 keys of the piano, and how do you know which notes to play in all of those 12 keys? And I happen to have come up with a way to answer that question, which I can show anybody, whether they have ever seen a piano or not, and I can show that to them. They can learn how to improvise on the piano in all 12 keys in 1 hour.
Wow.
So
that feels very powerful, Daniel.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And I was actually already working on this business to help people, adults, get back to the piano. I was already working on that business and these plans when this idea came to me. It's like, oh my God, I could show people in this particular way how to navigate all 12 keys of the piano really quickly. And, I was learning business and all that stuff. And they said, well, how long would it take? Right. 7 pounds in 7 days. That's what really gets them,
7 pounds, 7 days. Yeah.
So I was like, well, how long would it take? A week? And I was like, no, easy, a week. And I was like, okay, next, what's a day? So no, easy, a day. And I was like, well, what next? An hour? And I got, oh my God, could I show people how to do this in an hour? And I had to kind of run through it a little bit. And I thought, wow, I could really show people how to do this in an hour. And so that's been about 5 years ago now. And so, once you sort of get over this hurdle of knowing which 7 notes to play, you can just start playing them. You can just you just push them down and try them and see what happens. And you don't have to worry about playing something that's going to sound horrible. It starts to get engaging and interesting. It's like. And all I'm doing really is just looking at the 7 notes to play in this particular key and just trying them. And then your natural musicality can sort of emerge, right? Because, we're all capable of playing louder or softer or playing more or less notes or, and it doesn't have to be rocket science. It just gets to be fun.
Right. And I think this is the bringing in this sense of playfulness and fun, especially right now after 2020 and whatever 2021 is going to be. I keep feeling like as we redefine fears or as we look at the definition of this again, it's not always necessarily, this fight response. In some cases, it might have to be.
Mm-hmm.
But as we kind of readjust our survival mechanism and kind of move into this thriving mechanism, reintroducing play and joy back into our lives feels like a fundamental sense of just returning to who you are.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. And I noticed that you said fundamental. What if fun was fundamental, right?
I think it has to be. I think it has to be. And I notice in my own life when I'm moving through that headspace of, okay, I have too much to do. I have too many things. The list grows and grows and grows and grows. And when I take a step back, and really in 2020 and this year, I'm fully embracing this idea that the idea of just putting on a random song and dancing like a kid or or the wild woman, or just doing fist pump, like whatever it is, jumping around for 5 or 10 minutes, and whatever music comes up, or being more conscious and choosing deliberately which song I want to fire me up or to calm me down. It's
Yeah.
been really great for me to return to that as a base, of okay, yeah, all this other stuff is going on, but here I can just play for a few minutes and come
Yeah.
back into my own sense of who I am and carry that. So I love that sitting with a piano for just a few minutes and feeling into, these are a few notes I can play now. This is what feels like I can touch the keyboard in this way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the thing that becomes possible then in the bigger picture of what I hope to share with people is to notice that being in your own body and having fun and realizing where you are now, and being able to do that in a way that you can allow yourself to not know stuff. It's like we need to really be able to accept the fact that we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. We don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. It looks like the climate has 10 years to somehow recover. It looks like we have, some time to move in the directions we want to go. I mean, that's what it looks like. That's what our brains tell us. But what we really know is true is that I'm sitting here at this piano. I'm having this conversation with you, and I have this opportunity to share this idea that what really matters is to notice what's happening now, and the only thing I really need to worry about right now is what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And to learn how to engage in that question and answer process. So I play this and it's like, oh, so it sounded like that, huh? It's like, oh, that was nice. Okay, now what do I do? And then try something else. I want to hear, and then I want to hear this. So play that. And how did that sound? Was that satisfying? And then just engage in this process of being present, and then learning how to move through our day and move through our the tasks, the things that we choose to do in ways that we can bring our full presence to every one of them.
This feels so powerful right now. I feel like this return to, and I struggle with this, doing the very next step. I have big
We all do.
vision, I have
Yeah.
oh, I could see 10 steps ahead. I can see what this could all be. And and even creating the summit, like staying right here in this step and being fully present and feeling and listening to what's coming out and just saying, this is what I want to put my attention on. This is what I have to do next. This, and not even have to. This is what I want to do next, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is
Mm-hmm.
where this comes from. But when we play in that space, what happens when there is that difficult situation, right? The next thing that you have to do might be a really challenging thing.
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
do you come back to that? And the song in the moment might be a really dramatic thriller, some high action thing. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
really, I just want to listen to, quiet, soothing beach sounds right now. But the
Yeah.
next thing is going to require a much more forceful energy,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
opposite. How can you suggest that we work with our creativity and our own sound of what needs to come out?
Such a really great question. And this is really what it comes down to, isn't it? It's like it's easy to say all this stuff, and it's fine when we're just having a pleasant conversation and I get to play a few notes, and it's like that's pretty easy. But it gets harder sometimes, and it's a process. It's I I have found that even though I have done all the various kinds of personal work that I have done, and a lot of deep work and a lot of shamanic stuff, and had some really, really good teachers, and I still find myself saying something or doing something like, Daniel, did you really say that? I mean, really? Um, and and um, and so it's this ongoing process. But part of that, I would just say, is to learn how to really um, I'll tell you a quick little story. Do we have time for a quick little story?
Sure. We always have
Um,
time for a quick little story. I love
oh,
quick little
oh,
stories and
good.
long stories too.
So years ago, I was. This is probably. I don't know. This is probably 20-ish years ago, maybe even a little bit longer. I was in my office, and I had so much to do, and just overwhelmed with work, and my computer started crashing, and it would crash, and it was like, and I reboot it and wait for, it took like 3 hours for it to reboot, and then it would come back, and then I start in again, and then like 15 minutes later it would crash again. And this happened like the third time this happened. I was I was enraged. I was just totally enraged, and I just leaned over, and 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 I knew there was enough in me to know that there was something that I wasn't aware of, but I was really just enraged at God and creation and everything. But I was open enough to just like, to phrase this as a question. I was like, why could this possibly be happening? I was just like, why is this happening? And I was just in that state. And then I heard this tiny little voice go, so you can learn to love it. I was like, shit! I'm so screwed.
Right, you have to learn to love it.
That's the only possible answer. Is like, oh my God, so I've got to learn to love it, right? Great. I mean, that was the last thing I wanted to hear, but I knew that was the only possible answer. And so it's a little bit of that kind of thing. It's like we are in this totally magical existence, right? I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever that a bunch of energy could form into molecules, that could form into cellular structures, that could form into communities of cells, that form into who we think we are. It's ridiculous. And so to have ways that, that's what, our meditation practices can be about. That's what this practice can be about, is just continue to come back. My morning practices every morning. It's like it's the last thing I want to do is to go to, those directions prayers, but I just do it. And every time it's a way to reset and to oh, okay, right. And so that's not really an answer, but it's
No, it's a story, and it's
a story.
that falling in love with what's right there right now, and it's and the constant ability to have to take a fresh start, right? To see that as, how can I fall in love with this today, even if it's really difficult?
Yeah.
And how can I just say, thank you for this experience, because however it shows up is going to give me more strength, resilience, compassion, like whatever the adjective is at the moment.
Yeah, and sometimes there's not even sometimes it's just accepting it because it is.
Mm-hmm.
That whole I think there's a way that a lot of us in sort of the personal growth world, we want to have reasons for things, and ultimately, really ultimately, it just is. Stuff just is, and that's why I think this how question, like, how do I learn to love my computer crashing, or how do I learn to play the piano, or how do I learn to be a more fierce human? It's like ultimately it's those how questions are kind of, it's an intellectual exercise that can sometimes sort of shield us from the actual physical experience of just being, and being willing to listen and to just be willing to be, and in whatever it is, because that's what is.
Well, and I actually find that same response when I go too deep with the why, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes the why question, and everybody talks about this. You got to get to your why. Why are you doing all these things? I still don't have a good answer for why did I walk across 2 continents. I don't know. Life called me that way. It was my experience. It was something I was meant to have, and to do with a partner, and to meet all these people along the way. And you know what? That's good enough for me, right? It was good enough because it was me being me in all the ways that life showed up for me, the difficult parts and the really rewarding parts, but the how and the why, it's sort of let it go and what can you do right now? What's your next step? What is here? What's present for you? And how does that ground you? How does that move you? How does that spark something else? How does it give you an impulse? How does it make you
Mm-hmm.
reflect? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What is this play that we're in all the time and choosing to be and choosing to become? And I feel like when we listen to those sounds, like, and I've done some of these, all these different rituals too, and we have some of them on the summit and in different shamanism journeys and different practices and meditations. And I feel it comes back right to what you said. It's listening to you. It's the deep listening that we don't often give ourselves the space to sit in, right? We just,
Mm-hmm.
we do our routine in this very, we just do it and we don't often think about it consciously. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
come back to like a meditative state and bringing music into that sometimes too, right? It can help. I guess, and you could probably answer that better than me. Like it does bring you more into this present moment because you're feeling a connection, even if it's a song that you know for 10 or 15 years, right? You've just connected a song that you've known forever into this heart space,
Mm-hmm.
carry it into, some future point in time as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have the opportunity to explore that, to really feel the difference that those two notes made.
Mm-hmm.
Like just doing that changes stuff,
Yep.
and to really sink into the power of that. Imagine if you were having a challenge with a child or a parent or a partner, and you could just walk over to a piano and sit down and go, that changes stuff.
Yep.
It changes stuff. And regardless of the dynamic, maybe there could even be some resistance or somebody that might even enrage somebody a little bit more. Who knows? But it changes things. It moves, and it gives you the agency to decide what it is that you want to bring to the world in a
Mm.
real clear way, and in a way that can be impactful in ways that you really have no idea. We have no idea, because that's just waves that are floating around out there, and they're going to go out there and they're going to do their thing, and I have no control over what happens after
Right.
that.
And
I just
letting go of the outcome, right? Or letting go of the expectation of an outcome and just simply putting
absolutely
it out there and doing what comes.
yep. The only thing I need to be concerned is what do I do next?
Mm.
And completely let go of whatever impact it's going to have out there, because it's then that becomes a waste of my time. The way some people will say now, what somebody thinks of you is none of your business, and so it's like, how cool is that? Right?
Well, and just as you were doing that, I really felt okay. Would you play with me, David? Daniel here.
Sure, sure.
Would you play with me?
Absolutely.
And I'll throw out some words, and we'll just see what sounds come from them.
Cool.
Yeah, and just
Yeah.
kind of put this out there to the world and show them that yeah, this is how it could work. It could just be as simple as something like
Oh,
this.
cool. That's a cool idea. Yeah.
Huh? And I don't know what words will come up. Like they'll just sort of kind of pop in. They'll be around the
Okay.
words of the summit, I guess. And we'll
Okay.
just see how we play with this.
All right.
All right, ready, Daniel?
Sure.
All right. Let's start from the beginning. Fierce. Awaken.
Hmm.
Grace.
Grace.
Integrity.
Hmm.
Empathy.
Hmm.
Joy. And two of my most favorite words, serendipity.
Hmm.
And then I'll tell you my last one. Serendipity.
Serendipity.
Very good. And imagine.
Hmm.
That will be our last one. Imagine.
Imagine.
Beautiful. Sending out all those beautiful notes and music and sound into the world.
Mm. Well, it was a fun little game. I used to be in a playback theater company, and it was often about like that kind of thing. It's like somebody brings a story up, and you sort of play that out, and I love doing that. So thanks for that.
Yeah, it came to me as I was thinking about it, as you were playing the other part, and like, we sing our sound for the summit. What? Let's sing it, or
Cool.
Let's play that. You know, and it's called.
That's great. That's great.
Well,
Play it
you
out.
probably don't want me to sing it, but let your fingers play it and sing it.
Listen to you.
I know. Listen to me. What story did I just tell myself there? So, Daniel, any other wonderful pieces of wisdom you want to share?
Well, I just really appreciate the opportunity to be in this conversation with you today, Jenn, and to have the opportunity to share what really does feel to me to be the treasured gift in all of this to me. And I'll tell another quick little story. When I was a little kid and playing the piano, my parents would sometimes they'd have these parties, and they would ask if I would go in and play something for the folks that were there. And I would go in like 6 years old or 7, and I would go in and play some little piece that I'd been working on. And I'd walk back in, and they would all start clapping. And I had a very strange reaction to that clapping. And it wasn't really that I didn't think that I thought maybe a little bit of just being nice or something like that. It wasn't really all that great. But really the thing underneath it was, I'm not doing anything special here. Mm. It's like, why am I being given applause for just doing what I'm doing? You know, and it was a little bit of that. And and I haven't thought of this for a while, but what I would like to say to the folks that are watching this is that there's nothing special here about what I'm doing. It's not that I have any particular abilities that anybody else doesn't have. And so I just would invite you all to open to these possibilities, that you are absolutely as creative as anyone else, and that you have these powers that are innate in you, because they're innate in life. And that there is so much more that we are capable of. And we have plenty of work to do, we have plenty of things to do to bring more love and harmony and wisdom and joy and fun and celebration to the world. And what better assignment could we have than to bring joy and light and love to this planet? I mean, why not? So really grateful to be a part of this conversation.
No, thank you, Daniel. You do actually have something special. And I'm glad you said yes to being here, and the invitation that life threw up in your space in the form of an email that said, hey, do you want to share your gifts and help us figure out what song we need to bring out to the world, or music we can play with individually and collectively, right?
Yeah, both. Yeah, that's who we are. We think we're this one person, but we're really part of a much bigger thing.
Yeah, and different parts of us will show up at different times, right? And our song will be different at different times, but
yeah, like breathing.
Unfolding. Yeah, it's like breathing. It goes back to that all the time, right? I do want to mention that you are giving all of us a fantastic gift.
Yeah.
You have been curbing your creativity and how to unleash it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there are things that we do. There are things that our brains do that get in our way, and it sort of pushes our creativity to the side, and we don't often acknowledge that we even have it because we don't have the experience of using it. And so at my site at danielbarber.com, there's a place at the bottom of the main page there where you can sign up to get this little PDF on 6 ways you can unleash your creativity, and you can be aware of these things that stop you. One of them, just as an example, is to stop trying to play music. We try to play music, and when you're trying to play music and you're not really plugged into your own innate music making capacity, it can get in the way of your actual creative flow. So that's an example of the kinds of things that are available there. So go check that out.
Yeah, we'll have that. That link also on the speaker page. But just mention your website again, where people can find it quicker if they want to get there right away.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Daniel Barber, Barber, like what I don't need. DanielBarber.com.
So what else do you have coming up? Any other things coming up later in the spring?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm really excited about at this point is that I'm putting together a community of people who are doing this work that I call Sound Yourself. And so I'm going to be putting together a community at DanielBarber.com, and I'm calling it the Vibe Tribe. And so this is going to be a place where, people, you can learn how to engage with each other real easily and share experiences with the piano and with this work, and to take it as deep or as fun as you'd like. And so I'm excited about that prospect. That's probably going to be I'm going to be making that available within the probably sometime mid-spring, mid-April-ish, something like that. So so yeah, looking forward to that. It's going to be fun.
Well, I'm sure it will be. I'll look forward to those emails too. See how
Cool.
they're
Cool.
shaping up.
Great.
Yeah, it's fun to play in this space with you.
Well, thank you. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, it does feel like one of the things that's possible at this point in time is for us to connect and to do so in ways that are really just enjoyable, and that we get to play with each other and we get to explore stuff and share ideas and thoughts, and bring the kind of blessings to this world that we want for ourselves and that we want to share with those we love.
Making fun fundamental, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. Making fun fundamental. Yes.
Yeah, it's a fun way to think about it. It's a fun way to think about it.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental way to think about it.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Jen, so much.